3, 2. Welcome back to season 2 of IllumiNation Network podcast. Joining me today, we have Courtney Close and Valerie, and we are going to be talking about psychedelics, retreats, the benefits of psychedelics, and the dangers of shaman-assisted psychedelic therapy. For those who may not be familiar, psychedelics come from a long history of indigenous use from tribes and peoples that are very close to nature and have always considered plant medicines as a vital tool for gateways through life, healing traumas, becoming more in tune with their lives and the people around them. And they offer many physical healing benefits as well. For example, we have Wachuma, which is considered the grandfather medicine. This is a form of cactus that's usually taken from tribes close to the meridian, close to the equator. And so this one focuses a lot on inner work, inner self traumas, and essentially all of these plant medicines, they feel alive to the people that take them. They have a wisdom to them, and this wisdom is something that people carry with them afterwards. And so there are many different forms. There's the magic mushrooms, as many people will know. This is also a very introspective journey. There's Kambo, which is taken from a form of frog. And this is very cleansing for the body, relieving emotional stress, physical stress, purging the gut, quite a various amount of things. And we have a few grounding tools as well, like indigenous forms of tobacco known as hape, rape, or mapacho. And finally, we come to ayahuasca, what's considered the grandmother medicine on the other side of Wachuma. And this is considered to be a very nurturing, very feminine energy, very trauma-based. And Valerie here, I'm sorry, not Valerie, Courtney here works for the Hummingbird Church, and she works with retreats. She organizes events. And so would you like to introduce yourself, Valerie, talk a little bit about ayahuasca and some of the benefits? I'm sorry, Courtney.
Hi, I'm Courtney Close, founder of Hummingbird Church. Our primary location is in Southern California, but we conduct retreats in Northern California and Nevada as well. Our spiritual leader is Taita Pedro Davila of the Cometza tribe of the Colombian Amazon. So we follow our ceremonial rituals under his direction. We are a nonprofit church. We are not a wellness center or a retreat center. We are primarily focused on healing people with deep trauma, combat veterans, first responders, Black people and people of indigenous people and people of color. We use all of our money to pay for ceremony, the time of our shaman, and then training for our volunteers. Our goal is to create a safe space for everyone that is attending our ceremonies, and to also create a community afterwards where they can feel supported. So aside from doing the ayahuasca retreats, we also offer free integration, free workshops to talk about other plant medicines, and a variety of different things that we do as a community to provide support. I've been organizing for Taita Pedro for the last 4 years. And then this year we made the jump of becoming a church and putting it out there to the public instead of being underground. So thank you for having me.
Excellent. And thank you so much for coming and sharing your experience with us. And so another aspect I'd like to focus on is the sort of microdosing, whereas in most retreats in therapeutic settings, macrodosing or just full dosing is considered the norm. Microdosing is something that people like to do in their daily routine, something that's, just enough to activate the effects that help bring spaciousness and awareness to our experiences throughout the day. And with that, I'd like to turn it to Valerie here to introduce herself and some of the work that she does with that.
Hi, my name is Valerie. I'm 33. I'm a mom, happily married, live in Florida. I am a microdosing coach and affiliate with Golden Euphorics out in Oregon. And I like to hold free workshops out in my community on microdosing psilocybin specifically to educate the public, reduce the stigma of it's a drug. And as the psychedelic renaissance continues, I think education and harm reduction is extremely important. So that's where I come in because I am an avid psychedelic and plant medicine user and advocate.
Excellent. Thank you so much for coming to share with us today, Valerie.
You're welcome.
In terms of psychedelics, just like any medicine, it isn't all sunshine and rainbows and quick, easy fixes. There are dangers associated with altering your mind state and associated with this budding community in American culture. For example, those who have neurochemistry imbalances should consult with a doctor before thinking about taking any sort of psychedelic or going on a retreat of some kind, just to ensure that their personal neurochemistry as well as their family history doesn't coincide with anything that could be potentially harmful if they do take medicine. And some of the conditions that are known red flags for those wanting to partake in a psychedelic journey from their family line would be examples of schizophrenia, OCD, in some cases, neurological disorders and behavioral disorders of the more destructive kind. And so with that, just consulting a doctor and understanding your personal history and your neurochemistry and seeing what would be a best fit for you. A lot of people turn to psychedelics for antidepressant treatment and to help understand the factors in their lives that create a feeling of depression, or show them a path to start making things better for themselves. And so with that, anyone taking medicine for depression, seeking this kind of treatment, seeking some sort of breakthrough experience to understand why they feel the way they feel and find a ladder out of that hole, be careful coming off of your SSRIs and definitely consult a doctor before you make a decision like that. With that, the only other topic of discussion for today will be focused on the dangers of shaman-assisted psychedelic therapy and highlighting some of the more destructive ones in the community. With that, we come to a man named Geronimo Redfeather, as he calls himself, or Timothy Redding. This man is a self-aggrandized psychedelic shaman, so he says, and from stories throughout the community, he has been using his medicine and his reputation and his position of power to abuse people, to manipulate people, and to hurt them. One story I had heard recently, he seduced a very pure and outspoken woman I've worked with in astrology and convinced her to quit her job so they could travel and host ceremony together. He bailed on her, and when she sought accountability for the desperate situation she was left with, he showed no remorse. And this just goes to say that, like, you know, in this case, he didn't respect relationships. He didn't respect what he was, you know, emotionally connecting with. And for someone to hold space for people and to honor their vulnerability and reward it with compassion and spaciousness, this can't be trusted. A second story I'd heard recently, a few years before 2020, Timothy Redding hosted an older woman's first psilocybin experience. She says he had told her the dose was a mild 3 grams, but from her account, it must have been either much more than that or laced with another substance. She had a very overwhelming experience, to which Redding scoffed and told her, "Shit in, shit out," as if to say her struggle was needed to heal, but his lack of compassion told otherwise. This woman goes on to explain that before, during, and after her experience, that Geronimo Redfeather was verbally abusive, controlling, and she had caught him lying multiple times. I am happy to announce that since this experience, this woman has self-medicated her PTSD that she had accumulated through her life by microdosing psilocybin mushrooms. And that makes me feel so good that the medicine can still work for someone after having a terrible experience like that. And it shows that those in the community who want to abuse the medicine aren't going to stop it from helping people. And it takes voices like us three here and the women speaking out to really stop this from happening, because this is something new in our community and our culture here in America. And it's something that, we need to highlight, we need to talk about as much as possible to mitigate and stop this from happening again. I have one more story to share before we open it up to Valerie, and a story that she has to share as well. Another woman claimed to have dreams of a red flying angel or bird come at her from somewhere, to which she recited a mantra about only holding space for her love. She says she didn't fully comprehend how off her experience was until the morning after her ceremony. She was invited to have normal social time with Redfeather's crew, and when the red flags started to become visible, flagrant promiscuity, excessive alcohol, and ridicule for her vegetarian diet, while the team indulged in pork at a lavish restaurant. It turns out the entire weekend he had been throwing her jabs like that which rattled her. It was also later revealed Geronimo wasn't even welcome at the home everyone was gathering at, which he was belligerently drunk and high at while cooking in their kitchen. This woman didn't realize how much tension she was holding from this encounter until she had left. Dogfights, sexism, and ridicule were just the surface. Nobody should be teased by their shaman for having a hard time. And a shaman essentially should be the epitome of moral high ground, a moral compass, and compassion. But a large reason that we're gathered here today is because this behavior is continuing to escalate, and we've seen a loss at which no words can describe how painful it is to the people involved. So thank you so much for coming on, Valerie, to share your story with us, and we'll be here to hold space for you. Oh, you're muted right now.
Thank you. You want me to just start from like the beginning?
Yeah, just how did you meet him, and where did you set up ceremony? How did it go?
Okay, so I met Geronimo, or Timothy, 3 years ago at something called a Landmark Forum. It's a personal development seminar. And I actually met his girlfriend there too. They were not together at the time. So Timothy and Nicole were both there, came separate. And throughout the seminar, we were paired into different groups and things, had social hours. So we got to know each other eventually. And we just stayed in contact on Facebook. That was it. Years went by and we just followed each other's journeys. A few months ago, earlier this year, I felt called to plant medicine and I wanted to sit with combo first. I had seen that Timothy had done things like this before, so I reached out to him, asked him some questions. He said yes, he could hold the ceremony for me, no problem. Came over to my house. There was also, by the way, there was no pre-screening. There was no like, eat this, don't eat this, abstain from this, nothing. It was treated like a transaction, like a drug deal, more or less. I paid for the ceremony. He came over. While he put the combo on, everything was fine at first until I lost my points and I passed out during the ceremony and I fell into my purging bucket. Thank God I didn't purge first, or I would have fell face first into my vomit. But he let me sit there and while he's on his phone laughing. That was my first red flag.
Wow.
Second one was during a Bufo ceremony, which he also hosted. Him and Nicole came over. He administered the medicine. My friend Caitlin recorded it. So I do have video of my combo and my Bufo ceremony with him. And there was a point in time during the Bufo ceremony when I was kind of like half in, half out, you know, that very suggestible phase, where he suggested that witchcraft, which is a community I'm a part of, is something I need to get rid of. And it's harming me. It's not helping me. I'm giving it power. And yeah, so basically saying that what I practice is harming me. Again, didn't sit right with me. I didn't know why, but continued our friendship, relationship, whatever you want to call it. And I got to know Nicole really well. Me and her hung out separately, just me and her, created a bond, created a friendship. I really trusted her. During, I forgot to mention, during combo, my friend Diane, which I'll mention later in just a minute, was also over, and she sat with Bufo for her first time. So there was technically 2 ceremonies in one day for that one. Okay. Fast forward, me and Diane decided we wanted to sit with ayahuasca. And since I had already done 2 ceremonies with Timothy and Nicole, and I didn't really know anybody else in the medicine community yet, it was kind of a no-brainer. Again, no pre-screening, no, are you on any medications? Do you have any mental health diagnoses? There was no instructions for the dieta, nothing. It was basically, show up at my house, this is what it costs, you'll be fine. You know, his favorite saying is, it's all bullshit anyways. That's what he would say. Wow. Granted.
Such a nihilist statement.
Yeah, and I gotta tell you, now I'm speaking in this tone of voice because it's all hindsight. I just want to really reiterate that when I came to plant medicine, I was a broken, traumatized woman. So to be in the presence of somebody who has narcissist components, for me, that's, I can't help but like believe them. The other thing is the egotistical manners that he carries. They're believable for somebody who, you know, doesn't trust her intuition yet, or maybe is scared to question, because he doesn't answer very nicely. He answers your questions in a manner of like, don't question me, or you're stupid, don't you know better? So there was never really a lot of like sitting down, conversating, trying to figure out what I'm doing, which is very naive and on my part, I will say. But through my naivete and what had happened, now I will always speak out against this. I will never be quiet, because when Diane, my friend, and I decided to sit with ayahuasca, that's when everything went wrong. So this is what I remember. Friday night or Friday afternoon, Diane came to pick me up at my house about noon. We drove to Winter Park, which is where Timothy and Nicole resided. We arrived like around 3. Got there. I remember walking in the door, talking to Nicole, talking to Timothy, like small talk, like, oh, nice house, you know, things like that. Me and Diane settled into our bedroom, which I guess we were going to share. And then that's it. That's all I remember. What I'm about to recount to you was all told to me after. We supposedly went to the springs, a local spring. Don't remember that. There are people that we called Friday night. So Diane had a fiance named Devin. She called him and said, hey, we went to some springs. I called my husband, I guess, and because my husband Joel said, yeah, you guys said you went to springs. I don't have pictures. I don't have video. I have no memory of it either. So I'm not sure what happened there. But we survived Friday, whatever happened. And according to a recount from Nicole Woodall after the incident that I'm about to say, she said that we did do ayahuasca Friday evening and we were okay. Saturday is when everything went wrong. I do remember setting up. We were in like a square formation. Nicole and Timothy were in the front. Me and Diane were sitting across from them. I remember candles. Geronimo had his little setup, you know, like singing bowl, medicine bag, sage, herbs, things like that. Nicole was next to him. I remember being served what they called hape. I have sat with hape before, and this, I don't think it's what it was. As soon as it was administered, extreme burning, dryness of the throat, coughing. I needed to vomit. I remember going to the bathroom, trying to vomit, and I was high on something. I'm not sure what it is. After speaking to several people afterward, many people actually, it is not uncommon for Geronimo to lace his hape with ketamine and not tell people.
And that's something that people he's stayed with have also reported.
Yes. I've talked to at least 7 people, either on the phone or face-to-face, that have said this. And I've also talked to a few people via email or text message that have also corroborated this statement, or accusation, whatever you want to call it.
So this hape didn't have any of the typical grounding like feelings that hape would.
I was high. That's the best way I can describe it. I was crawling out of my skin. I was not in my right mind. I hated how I felt. I've never done ketamine before, so I have nothing to compare it to. All I'm saying is it wasn't hape that went up my nose. Like, I was, not to be vulgar, but I was sitting on the toilet because I thought I had to vomit, and I decided to sit down because I'm like, maybe I have to pee. And then while I'm sitting there, I couldn't figure out what my body was doing. I'm like, I need to do something else. I didn't even know if I was on my cycle. I actually looked in the trash can to see if there was previous disposed feminine products, because I couldn't tell if I was on my cycle or not. That's how like when my mind was. And I was not like connected to my body. I had no idea what was going on. So yeah, I'm not sure what ketamine feels like. I have nothing to compare it to,
like
but
dissociative.
I was high out of my mind and I hated how I felt. Then I remember coming back. I do not remember drinking any sort of brew. I know ayahuasca is a brew. I don't remember ever taking it. My last 2 memories that I have of that night, and this is it, I haven't remembered anything since. I remember Geronimo digging in his medicine bag for something. And Diane was sitting cross-legged and she was bouncing like this. She was like, just like really loud. And we kind of looked at her and he goes, your sister found her voice. And he grabbed my foot and he was like, I got your toe. And I thought that was really strange. He was just acting really out of character. I was like, okay, whatever. And then as he was digging in his bag, he handed something to Nicole. Nicole gave it to me, and it was a clear cap, very large capsule. It was clear, and inside of it was this like indigo colored, like a stick is what it looked like. And I was like, what is that? And she said, this is sassafras. This is a heart opener, is what she called it. Yes. Which explains why we tested positive for amphetamines afterwards, because I do not indulge in methamphetamines or amphetamines, MDA, any of the derivatives, none of them. I've been clean off illicit drugs for 5.5 years. And I remember taking it. I also remember watching Diane take it. And the next memory, and this is the last one I have, is Diane rolling, just like a barrel or a log, just like tumbling everywhere. I remember hearing glass knock over, candles were getting knocked over. Nicole was kind of freaking out. I could hear it in her voice, like, Diane, 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 Diane. Like, she sounded very nervous the way she was saying it. I don't remember where Geronimo was. I don't even remember seeing him. I remember Nicole like chasing Diane because she was just flailing everywhere. And that's it. Those are the last of my memories. Next, 2 days later, I woke up with a tube down my throat, because what ended up happening is we had a horrible adverse reaction to whatever he gave us. Substances found on scene were Syrian rue, which we know is a DMT derivative, ether, something called root extract. It's actually a powdered supplement for men's hair growth. I was on scene. They didn't find any sassafras or any MDA derivative, but I do remember being given to us. And then, of course, we had the hape or whatever the hell it was. So all these substances in our body at the same time did not go well. And Diane ended up dying, and I was put into a coma to save my life. Sorry.
It's okay. We're so sorry to hear about your friend Diane. She didn't deserve that.
No. I'm just so upset because she has 3 kids. She has 2 little boys that are twins and then an older. She had a fiance. They were supposed to get married in December. That was my friend. You know, like we had established a really close friendship really quick. And she didn't deserve it. Like this was her second time ever sitting with plant medicine. And I know for a fact, because I've sat with, you know, a few other psychedelics, and I've sat with psilocybin many, many, many times. They are safe. They are genuinely or generally safe. You know what I'm saying? With the exception of, you know, mental health diagnoses and certain SSRI medications. It's just people like this that are so negligent and ego driven, to name a few. I think I know Diane would be here today if this medicine was treated with safety and integrity first. I'm glad he or she, I'm not even sure if Nicole or Geronimo, whoever it was, called the ambulance, because I've talked to the same women that you have, Tristan, and others, that their experience was like hell for 12 to 24 hours, and they felt like they were dying and nothing was done, you know? So that's really the story in the nutshell. There's, of course, many other, you know, details, and we can get more theatrical with it, but that's the story in a nutshell. My friend is now gone. She lost her life. I was this close. The coma is what saved my life, because we were experiencing, she experienced cardiac arrest and I was experiencing organ failure. So if it wasn't for the quick action of the doctors on their part, I probably wouldn't be speaking to you today right now. And my kids would not have their mother, and my husband would not have his wife.
We're grateful that you're here to share this story with us. And as much as I'd like to know more of the details, I don't want to push open an open wound like that. And we can focus on, you know, why do these things happen? Why do these people feel that they can do this? And how can the common people who are seeking treatment, who are seeking this medicine, how can they find a shaman that will assist them and care for them during this experience? These are the things that the community needs to focus on right now.
And
you know, it's really important for you to not feel like guilty for not seeing the signs, because people like this, they prey on a demographic. They end up having a cycle that's traceable to where we can say all of these stories in one podcast, and it's evident that this is a journey that's been going on that's becoming deeper and darker with every passing day.
I would be lying if I said I didn't feel any guilt. I do a little bit, just because, like I said, I had some intuition about, well, I didn't even know it was intuition. I just had this funny feeling. I'm like, that's not right. That doesn't sit with me right. And I just didn't continue the questioning process. And, you know, I blamed myself for a long time. In fact, after I was in the hospital for 5 days. When I got home, I went through 3 weeks of the worst depression, PTSD, anxiety, paranoia. I wasn't bathing. I wasn't eating. I wasn't sleeping. I couldn't take care of myself. I hardly took care of my kids, you know, as far as like they were fed, clothed, and bathed, and that was it. As far as mommy like being there and playing and smiling and all that, I wasn't. I pretty much you know, would have them watch TV, and I would go cry or scream or whatever, look out the window, paranoia. I felt like people were coming after me, like the town was mad at me, because I live in a very small, non-progressive area of Florida. People were calling me murderer. They were blaming me, like I influenced this whole thing. And towards the end of the 3 weeks after I got out of the hospital, I have never in my life ever considered suicide. Like, I was terrified. I don't have the guts to do it. I knew that. It was the last thing on my list. In fact, up until a few months ago when this all happened, it was never an option. After these 3 weeks, I was so full of rage, and I have been off psychotropic medication for, 15 years. I was considering going back because I had such intrusive thoughts. I couldn't stop it. My psyche was broken. It was just shattered. I was not the woman that I was before that ceremony. I was a shell. And my husband came home, this was the worst day. I had actually planned that night to take my life. And something overtook me, and I came to my husband and I said, hey, I'm really scaring myself. I don't think I'm able to take care of the kids anymore. I'm not a good mom anymore. That's what I thought of myself. And I think you just need to take me to the hospital. Maybe they need to get me on some meds or something. Maybe commit me for a little bit. Like, I'm not okay. I never admitted to him that I wanted to take my life because I still wanted that on the table. But he said, absolutely not. And my husband does not use psychedelics, but he's watched what they've done for me before. This was before I met Geronimo. I'd been microdosing with psilocybin, and he saw the healing powers and believed in them. He was the one that suggested, no, I'm going to have the kids go to my mom's, and I'm going to sit with you, and you're going to macrodose, and we're going to get through this together. And I'm telling you, I am so grateful for psilocybin. It saved my life. It really did. So the power of these plant medicines, I'm a firm believer, and it's personal at this point, because one thing surrounding plant medicine took my friend's life, but another surrounding plant medicine gave me my life back. After that 8-hour trip journey, I healed so much. I felt like I healed lifetimes of trauma. I woke up the next morning with peace. I reset my brain. And then I actually sat with psilocybin another time, maybe 3 weeks after that. And that's what emboldened me to start speaking out. Because at this point, I was still scared to say something. I'm not sure if I was going to get taken seriously. I wasn't sure if I was the only one. But the second time after the tragedy, when I sat with psilocybin, I saw some things and felt some things and experienced some things that really emboldened me to speak out, and to always speak out, and to never be quiet about this, because I never, ever want somebody to have to experience what I did and lose, such an amazing person like Diane. Like, Diane was an amazing person. She really didn't deserve to die. But since she has passed, she's not going to go in vain, and I'm going to make sure of it.
We're going to do everything we can to make sure of it too.
And
Shout out to your husband for knowing what to do, like taking the medicine together. It just goes to show that, these medicines help you reprogram your mind. You're making your mind vulnerable. You're unraveling it just to ravel it back up in a tighter, more sophisticated way. If you have a bad person showing you how to do that, it's going to mess with your mind. And if you have someone who cares for you, it's going to heal you. It's going to show you what you need to see.
I also had an experience with Geronimo Redfeather, which is nothing near, the experience that you had, Valerie, but there were, red flags that I ignored, with him. And it's really impacted my process, because I felt like I let a fox in the hen house, and there was definitely signs there. About a year and a half ago, my friend contacted me and said, hey, there's this guy, he's a Native American shaman, and he is out here in Palm Springs by where I live in California, and I want to do a Kambo ceremony with him. Will you go with me so that I'm not, going to some man's house alone? And I said, yeah, I'll go with you. So we went, to this house, and it was the house of a family that he was conducting ayahuasca ceremonies for. And we went into a room and he administered Kambo on my friend. I had Kambo a few times, but it never really did anything for me. And then I agreed to let him give me Kambo, and I had a great experience. I was like, oh my gosh, finally I was able to connect with this medicine. He held space really well. We talked to him, you know, for a little bit, and he was like, hey, well, I'll come over to your house and hang out. Later that evening, he came over. Like, he didn't even charge me for Kambo. I don't even think he ended up charging my friend. He came over to my house. We hung out. He seemed really cool. The first red flag for me was the name, though, Geronimo Redfeather. That did not seem like an authentic Native American name. And I have a big red flag with people who change their name. But other than that, he seemed all right. And he was going to Joshua Tree to go do some ceremonies. And he had left for the weekend, and then he contacted me and said, hey, I talked to your friend, and she wants to hang out. Is it cool if we all meet up at your house? And I was like, yeah, no problem. So he came over here and we smoked chonga, which is a DMT MAOI mixture. And I went second, and he was sitting next to me, and I was deep in it, and something told me, pull yourself out of it, pull yourself out of this. And I opened my eyes and I looked over and I could see him, and he was saying, I control this universe. This is all mine. I can do what I want. I control this universe. Ha 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 ha. And I was like, what the fuck? And I pulled myself up. I started just like almost panicking, and I got up and I walked up my stairs like on DMT and just like collapsed on my bed, and I passed out. The next morning, he was going to the airport. My friend took him to the airport. I found out that him and my friend had sex with each other, which was willing. She, you know, she wanted to do it. But the whole thing like freaked me out. And I had previously, like when things were cool, we're hanging out with him there, I was like, hey, why don't you come serve combo for a group of people that I have that are interested in it. Some are also interested in Bufo. And after that, I was like, no, dude, I can't have this guy. Like, this is crazy shit. Like, and then he slept with my friend. Like, what's he gonna go do? Like, sleep with more of them? Like, but then I felt like, am I being paranoid? Was this really because I had, you know, done DMT? Was this in my head? Was he really doing that? Like, I really started second guessing myself because I had had such an amazing Kambo experience with him. And then the time came for him to come to my house again to serve Kambo. And I was so torn about it. Like, he was flying from Florida to Los Angeles. So I felt like a dick, like, oh my God, I can't just cancel on him because I think I had this experience. And something just told me like, it'll be fine. He's not coming. I talked to him the day before. He was like, yep, I'm coming. I saw on Facebook, he landed to LAX and he never showed up at my house. And it was a blessing because I ended up meeting an amazing female Bufo practitioner who came and served. And I had about 25 people. So it would have been a complete fucking disaster. And if I really would have trusted my gut, I would have just spoke to him frankly and put a stop to it. But the universe stopped that from happening. So he had come to LA, never called, never told me he wasn't showing up. I had 25 people here. I did end up a few weeks later getting a call from a girlfriend of his, which was known as a medicine sister, apparently is what they go by. It was 5 o'clock in the morning, and I got a Facebook Messenger call, and then multiple messages accusing me of having sex with Geronimo, and him saying he was in LA with me, and she knew he had been sleeping with someone, and that she assumed that that person was me. And I was like, listen, nope, he did not even show up to my house. He did not acknowledge that he wasn't coming. He supposedly landed in LA, and he wasn't here with me. But I can tell you, last time when he was here, he did sleep with one of my friends. And then she started telling me stories of, well, he's a ketamine addict, he's out of control. And he had told me about mixing Syrian Maru and Mimosa hostilis and giving it in capsule forms to people as ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is a lot more expensive to get the materials. It's harder to get the materials. So they call it a pharmahuasca, which is taking sometimes even just DMT, isolated DMT and isolated harmalas from Syrian Rue and encapsulating them to create an ayahuasca-like experience that's much stronger, but it's not ayahuasca. And she had gone into these details about how he was just this unhinged ketamine addict who had a group of women that he referred to as his medicine sisters, who he had sexual relations with. Obviously, I don't have anything to prove that, except for, what was told to me on that call. My interactions with him afterwards, I never talked to him about like, hey, dude, you didn't show up to my house and I had 20 something people here waiting. He was inboxing my friends, my very attractive friends, and starting it off with, he wanted to apologize for all toxic masculinity and informed them that he was leading a women's circle. And and they're like, dude, you know this guy, he's on your Facebook, right? Is this the dude that like didn't show up to do Cambo and Bufo? And I'm like, oh, he like, what? So, red flag, a huge red flag is when a man is leading a woman's circle.
He was a woman in a past life.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he shows up in a skirt. I don't know. Like,
oh no.
And then I go and I look at his page and I see he was leading some women's group in Texas, and he had put his employer as female empowerment. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, this is very predatory. And that's one of the red flags to look for is a male shaman targeting females? Are they
exclusively want to heal females?
Yeah. Is it, and Geronimo had the thing with veterans. He was, from what I understand, a combat veteran. So he'd also done these veteran ceremonies. But then he'd also really targeted, these, female, or targeted women for these female healing circles. I had heard stories from people of where they were, like my friend, kind of embarrassed that they wanted to have sex with Geronimo, and they had sex with Geronimo, during or shortly after being administered a medicine, and were not in the right state of mind, but had maybe had thoughts of him being attractive beforehand. So they, wouldn't consider it like rape or sexual assault because they willingly did it. But when you're targeting people,
when you involve things like sassafras or MDMA with it makes people feel more fuzzy and warm, and they want to cuddle. It sounds like a gateway to date rape. It's just like a form of like brain hacking.
Yeah, totally. And you've got people that you've talked to, and that they're coming to you with some degree of sexual trauma or codependency or breaking up from a relationship, and then you give them these drugs that makes you feel touchy-feely, opens up your heart, and they look at you and deify you as, oh my God, this is like a real Native American shaman. He's here to help me, and end up, having a sexual relationship with him. So, I mean, after hearing those multiple stories, I felt very blessed that he did not show up at my house. And that, you know, the one incident was enough. But it is something, you know, when I'm talking to people about having them come out to Hummingbird Church, is, you know, are you in a relationship? How did you meet your partner? You know, their ceremony participant. Do you administer any other medicines besides ayahuasca? And if they start going down the roster of, oh yeah, I do ayahuasca, I do camo, I do bufo, I do mushrooms, you know, I do MDMA assisted. No, done.
They weren't called to all those medicines.
Exactly. How can you master all of that? Like, there's no way. So to me, that's, you know, a huge sign of someone doing it for either predatory motives, financial, being a financial predator, or a sexual predator, or both. Because there's absolutely no way.
It goes to show that a lot of these shamans come from religious backgrounds that are almost evangelical, where they don't even realize that once they find their new religion, they're doing the same sort of self-appointed, higher than thou kind of persona that their previous religion did. Not that I know what Geronimo did, but so much of this community, so much of the spiritual community is full of self-aggrandized healers, people who haven't done the work, but are seeking appreciation for the work they want to do. And so in the case of Geronimo, he's targeting women for his specific brand of healing in hopes that they'll be grateful to him in some way.
Yeah, which is unfortunately very, very common, is, you know, to go to a ceremony and to see it largely women, led by a male. I have been to so many creepy ceremonies, and a lot of the staff at Hummingbird, like we say, we've been to every shitty ceremony in the US, so you don't have to. I've literally been handed a fucking mixtape from the shaman of like his rapping and DJing. I've been to ceremonies where the shaman has asked attractive women to, you know, remove their shirts for a massage. You know, that's part of being in LA. There's such a huge medicine scene, similar to Florida. There's ceremonies going on all the time. There's people that are most of them are self-appointed, self-anointed, have not gone through any training, or maybe went to Peru for a short amount of time.
That's another good way to find out if the shaman you're dealing with is legit. Ask them what tribe, ask them about their training, ask them how long they trained, and, you know,
who they work with.
Exactly. What certifications do you have? How can you assure me? It's your job to assure me that you're not a weirdo, because I'm the one making myself vulnerable.
Yeah. And if you don't even have CPR certification, like your first aid kit consists of Palo Santo and some sage. Like that's, I mean, it's ridiculous. Like, you need to be able to handle someone holding spaces, making sure their body is physically looked after, that their spirit, their mind, all of those things come into play. So when I hear that someone's a shaman and they don't know how to do CPR,
you can't heal with faith alone.
Yeah, exactly. Oh no, I'm divinely, if I hear shit like divinely protected, I was anointed by my ancestors, you know.
It reminds me of Joel Osteen, honestly.
Yeah. Same, you know, same type of shit. And, you know, I've interviewed probably 50 different people that serve ayahuasca, and I only work with 2. And well, actually 3. A female now who's now at a point where she's serving, but they work under a maestro. They work under someone. They still have to report back into who trained them. They do dietas with them. They go back to the jungle. They don't just, and they don't bastardize ayahuasca of, oh, I put it in capsules, or, oh, I do my own thing. Asking, right. I get so many questions about what's in your brew. What do you mean?
I imagine there's so much to the intention of stirring the brew and adding the ingredients and putting the intention into it so that it is serving the purpose. And it's a process, it's a cycle, and the cycle becomes the magic.
Well, and one of the things that's pretty popular here in Southern California is people loading ayahuasca with dissociatives like datura or borrachero. So that, because with ayahuasca, I mean, you come to our ceremonies, which are about 70% male, and a lot of people are sitting there twiddling their thumbs night one because they're not really having this intense experience, because ayahuasca, you have to build a relationship with. It works through your digestive system. And if you're not loading it with things, it can take multiple ceremonies before you're really able to connect and let go and surrender to the process. And we're not putting anything in the ayahuasca that forces that. So that's why we do 3 ceremonies.
Essentially, those shamans that are going through and creating like the brew that perfectly hacks the mind for them to receive this revelation, they're wanting the medicine to do all the work that they're supposed to help with. Of course, it's the person taking the medicine that walks through the door, but it's the shaman who shines a flashlight, who holds their hand. And if they want the medicine to just knock them into a state where they have this God revelation, then they're not doing their job. They're lying to you.
And that's a big thing where I'll get, oh, well, I went to this other retreat and, you know, the shaman was more powerful because, you know, everybody was on their ass for 9 hours. I don't think that was your shaman. I think that was what was in there. Or they'll tell us this ayahuasca is wildly different from the ayahuasca I had with someone else. And I'll ask them, how was it different? And usually the experience that they describe is a dissociative, is, you know, I was completely out of my body. I was looking down at the room. I couldn't move. I don't remember. And I'm like, that's not very typical of an experience with ayahuasca. So, you know, I'm not saying that you're guaranteed that someone's not going to be a predator or that you'll have an amazing experience when you're going to a traditional South American shaman. But for me, I've definitely had better luck with that. And, you know, you really need to check references. Having a good mixture of people, having males and females. If I walked into a ceremony and it was all females and it was being led by a male, I'd be very concerned. Another thing to look out for is if they have Benadryl on the ready. Like we wouldn't give someone Benadryl on ayahuasca.
Right. But that's if they had an allergic reaction, which you would have already known if you were a good shaman.
If you screened them, like, but with datura, it's very, very common for people to have an allergic reaction. So they keep Benadryl on deck, and then we'll give you Benadryl to kind of bring you out of the datura experience. So it's, you know, it's sad. It's sad that as these plant medicines grow in popularity, the financial predators, the sexual predators, the power predators also are coming out of the woodwork, and they're seeing this as a hustle, as an opportunity.
That's a way to hack our consciousness and impose their will.
Yeah, exactly. And get whatever they want from you. And, you know, we do about 8 ceremonies a year because we all have day jobs, you know, except for the indigenous shaman. Like, he is an indigenous shaman. That's his job. But the rest of us have jobs, so we don't have the time to be doing ceremonies every weekend. And the reason that I like working with people who have other sources of income is because they're not going to be most likely not going to be financial predators, and they're doing this from their heart. We cannot keep up with the demand of people that want to come to ceremony. And we're doing bangers. We're doing 40 people ceremonies, and people are looking at us like, oh my, that's too many people. How do you do it? I'm like, we have a shaman that can hold it down. Plus we also have a support staff of 9 to 12 people who are there to help it, to go through the process. But if we were trying to do this for financial motives, we could greatly increase the price. We could be doing these every weekend. They could be sloppy. They could be haphazard. We could get rid of using an indigenous shaman because there's so much demand for these plant medicine experiences. So I see how it is emerging, and the appeal and the huge amount of money that you can make from doing this, especially if you start programming people with your will. And you are a financial predator and you're serving all these different medicines, and now you're getting them to sign up for this, and so many of them offer courses, which is another huge red flag for me. If you have a course of how to live your truest self and how to be empowered and you're homeless, no. So
I wrote a book on how to make $2 and it costs $2.
that that's amazing.
That's genius.
Yeah,
actually.
exactly. Like, so it's really just, I tell people, I'm like, whether you come to us or not, it doesn't, I'm not offended. I tell people often there's groups that I've sat with that are really amazing, like the Arizona Yahe Assembly, Origin Sangrada, Cosmic Valley. Like, go to these guys. They're safe. You'll have a positive experience, but ask around. Go to the Facebook groups. Go to Reddit, and it's like, people are going to have their opinions, and people aren't always going to be happy, but and people have stuff to say about us as well. But check references, go with your gut. If no one's available to take your call, they can't call you back, they can't talk to you on the phone, they're just taking your money, you're not getting an email, a follow-up email with instructions or dieta, or what to expect, then that's a big red flag. And
I think another one could be just trying to be patient when you're looking for your experience. I know that you want the breakthrough experience, you want to find the healing as soon as possible, but being patient with these people, especially you coming from a place of, I'm speaking to the listener, you coming from a place of being traumatized, of needing healing. The types of people who prey on that will want to get you in quickly, will want to get you to the ceremony, get you all hopped up, and so dragging it out, getting to know them, if they lose patience with you, they're not the one. They're going to be more
totally.
patient than anyone you know.
Totally. Like, if someone's trying to hustle you into a ceremony, like, you know what, you should come this weekend, I don't know, next weekend might not be an option, you got to come now. I tell people, like, if this doesn't work out for you, it'll work out for you in some other way, because I believe that these plants are divine and they do work. And when you are getting a calling, if you're a good fit for it, it's not going to stop calling you. Like, the opportunity will present itself for you to participate in a ceremony. So don't feel like you have to change your life around or rushed into it, or you went to this person because they're available, even though there were red flags. Wait for the opportunity to present itself in a way.
This works the same with relationships. That when forming a new relationship with this medicine, you don't want to rush into it. And I haven't had the experience of being able to have DMT, and it's something I'm very interested in, something I'm very wanting to try. But in the cases where I've been offered, I didn't trust the people, and I didn't want to expose myself in that situation. So I'm waiting. And I know that by waiting, I'll have the experience I'm meant to have when the right person offers it to me.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really great advice for, these plant medicine ceremonies, is, don't be afraid to wait. We recently have changed our intake process to where we have a pretty elaborate intake form. We're asking more questions. We've had issues where people came to, we should have screened people better. We were focused kind of on the health stuff and the medication, but there's a whole lot of stuff where, you may not have a diagnosed mental health issue or be on medication, but you're definitely not ready to do the work. So when you see your shadow self, you start projecting it on everyone else. You made me feel this way. You did this to me. You did that. You guys are evil. You guys, I felt like I want to kill myself. I felt this, I felt that. And it's like, well, that was all you, buddy. You didn't kill yourself. We were right there watching you, but they have no recollection of you sitting there with them, being there. They're offended by everything. And so, and to protect our own people now, we have totally enhanced our screening, because we had a guy go on some site called ImageFap and take pictures that were on our website of, or in social media of our facilitators and turn them into hinty porn. And
Oh my God.
yeah, and stalk people and we have there's a Reddit review that sounds like I'm Jim Jones and we're doing stuff to people like that's totally out of line. So, you know, we have to protect ourselves as well as protecting the people that come into ceremony. And it was definitely not anything that we thought that we were going to have to take protection in screening people against ourselves.
Yeah. And,
so
and that's, you're speaking on something really important there with preparation for this journey, this medicine journey. People have to know how to talk to themselves. They have to know what they're capable of. They have to come to terms with the mistakes they've made in their life, because during this ceremony, it's going to come out. So you might as well expect it.
Yeah, and you know, I'm trying to spend more time with people. Why are you going to ceremony? What are you trying to work through? And a lot of times it's a symptom. They're just trying to address the symptom, but not how they got there, or even understanding that there's a reason why they're experiencing this depression. You know, if it's PTSD, usually there's an event they can tie it back to. But a lot of times, like if someone just seems very blocked to understand that there was a situation, or incapable of forgiving themselves, or doesn't have a belief system that's rooted in love and forgiveness, these can be very, very hard processes to go through and can impede someone's healing on the plant medicine. So we're really trying. It was a horrible, horrible, scary experience for our facilitator to go through, with someone blasting them on Reddit, creating computer graphic disgusting pornography of them and throwing it up on the internet. And, you know, people projecting, you know, what they're seeing in themselves on our facilitators. So it goes both ways, but that's why screening is so important.
Yeah. And that's something I advocate a lot in my business is the preparation and the integration afterwards, because these people need to know what they're getting themselves into and know how to incorporate it into their lives in a way where this doesn't just become a cycle. Because that's another red flag, is if the medicine distributors, if the shamans plan for you to continue coming back to them, that's not a form of healing, that's a form of enslavement.
Oh, totally. And like, that's one of the things, because a lot of us at Hummingbird have been in that, where, you know, there was one when I first started my journey like 5 years ago with plant medicines. I was going back almost every weekend or every other weekend when I didn't have my kid to a ceremony from a shaman, because I didn't know what the fuck was going on. I wasn't integrating. I didn't even know what integration was. I just thought I was going back, getting more healing. And I was just getting stuck in a cycle with no growth. So we have a free integration call every week that anybody can call into. We have after ceremony, 2 to 3 days after ceremony, we have an integration call with an amazing coach who works with people just from that ceremony so that they feel comfortable talking through things. And then we have multiple integration coaches that will provide free low-cost sliding scale coaching or integration coaching. And then we have meetups where we meet up to do, and it's all free. We're not charging people to come to integration circles. I've gone to ceremonies where they have the ceremony and then it's $40 if you want to do the integration call, and it's, you know, $50 if you want to do the meetup. But we're really trying to foster a sense of community afterwards, and find out what someone's support network is too, which we've realized that's a big part of it, because sometimes people go back and they have no one to talk to about their experience. No one
or their support network or their support network is toxic, and that's part of the problem.
Yeah. Are they going back home and going back to an abusive husband? Are they, you know, in this dogmatic religious family? And just letting people know that, like, we're here for you as a community. Integration is so important, because you can have these very sometimes you can leave ayahuasca so ungrounded. You can be like, an angel came down and my dead grandfather and an alien and all this and happened. And I found out I'm from Pleiades and I'm here to save the world. Oh, okay.
And it comes back to the self-aggrandized titles that so many in this community gravitate towards, because it offers them an identity that's more important than the groundwork of what it takes to be a loving and compassionate and generous person in your community.
Exactly. Like, we get so many people that'll have it and be like, Mother Ayahuasca came to me and told me I am to serve the medicine. I'm like, this is your first time drinking. That's, I'm like, okay, you need to sit with the medicine, get to know the medicine, and shit, go down to the jungle and train if that's what you want to do. But it's not, you don't get that, oh, I drank ayahuasca a few times and it told me it's going to serve. It'll work out. It'll be your path, and you should be very reluctant to do it. It's like saying, I had heart surgery and you know what? I want to be a cardiologist, but fuck going to medical school. I'm going to start doing this. I'm intuition led. I don't need any training. I don't need any education. I've got God telling me what to do, and I'm divinely protected, and I'm going to start fucking with people. And
God guides my scalpel.
Yeah, God is my scalpel. Like, if you wouldn't let somebody just do that to you who's like, yeah, I'm self-trained. I don't believe in the time or money or investment in education. And I'm just gonna, do this. That's a red flag too. I mean, you should at least be willing to, you should want to, especially with ayahuasca, you should want to go down to the jungle, connect with the jungle and learn,
Yeah.
And it's a little different with things like bufo and mushrooms, because really, how do you do a mushroom ceremony and say whether that was, correctly done? And bufo too, it's this kind of, there's a lineage of doing things, but it's mainly this neo-shamanistic, practices, and people are doing them. And so I'm like, do they keep everybody safe? No one sexually assaulted. You're not continuing to come back. They didn't financially exploit you, but
And a shaman should never date someone that they've given medicine to.
And that's when I interview these guys. Oh, are you in a relationship? Oh, you are? Okay, how'd you meet your partner? Oh, they were a farmer participant. Awesome.
So when they fell in love with you when they were most vulnerable, and you were holding space for all of their insecurities. Right.
If I can interrupt, I would say probably 95% of the people I talked to that had sat with Geronimo, they were like, they've dated. So it was like a little more serious. There's even 2 that I spoke to that were spiritually married at the same time. So it's a whole open relationship ordeal. And then others, which was just, they had sex. I did not, and neither did Diane. I did forget to mention earlier, this was not a first memory. This was when I sat with psilocybin the first time. I felt, because the intention was, when I sat with the psilocybin, was to heal and to open up some memory bank. I needed to remember in my world. I felt like I couldn't have closure unless I remembered what happened. Now I'm almost wondering, maybe it was so fucking traumatic, my mind's doing me a favor, because we had bruising all over our body. And I think, Tristan, when I talked to you before, it was via text message. I'm not sure if I told you, but there was a dinner plate sized bruise on my inner thigh, and on my it was like my vulva, my lips down there. I could not walk. It was so painful. They couldn't figure out nobody could figure out where I got it. On my medical report, there was an IV that went into my femoral artery, which caused bruising. So I just wanted to clarify that when we and you spoke before. If I told you that, that's where it came from. We still don't have our rape kits back. They haven't been processed. But I was going to say, like, the whole flagrant sex and sleeping with girls, I actually kind of knew about that with him. I never had plans to have sex with him, but when I sat with psilocybin, it showed me, it said, it was actually on my ceiling. It opened like a movie theater, and I watched the whole thing play out. After we took the sassafras, Geronimo came to me first. He was like crawling to me on all fours, and he like looked up at me and said, "Sister," because he always calls everyone sister. He's like, "Sister, sometimes the medicine can cause you to want to release sexual energy. It can get very sexually intense. I offer my body to you," is what he did. Mm-hmm.
How
And
gracious.
that's the wording too. It sounded so ceremonious. And I said, "No, thanks." Like, there was two parts. In my mind, I was like, wow, you're asking. Because, you know, in my life before, because, you know, I said I was clean off illicit drugs for 5 years. So there was a time where I wasn't. In my life before, chemical manipulation always came with forcefulness or no consent. You know what I mean? So for him to ask, I was like, all right, that's kind of cool. But then at the same time, I was like, I know sex isn't supposed to happen here. Like, I know this is not part of the deal. But I was like, no, thanks. I'm good. See you later. And he said, okay, just wanted to ask. And he backed up. And then he went over to Diane, and I couldn't hear because there was music playing. But I watched her because she was still bouncing, doing this, the thing. She stopped, listened to him. And then she was like, nope, I'm good. And I continued her singing, and he like backed away or whatever. And I remember him and Nicole trying to, like, Nicole started it. She was like coming on to him, like they were touching their hands, and it was getting all like up the arms. They looked like two sixth graders trying to get like to third base for the first time is what it looked like. It was very awkward. It was very uncoordinated. And I remember peeking because I could feel, I'm not sure what medicine I was on at this point. I'm not even sure when at this point of the night it happened. I just remember it happened. But I was under the influence, and I remember peeking out my eye, and I saw that happen. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, oh my God, please don't have sex in front of me. Like I'm in no shape to like stop it if it comes my way. Do you know what I mean? So I wanted to throw that out there. I did remember that. Yeah.
What a gentleman to offer.
Right?
What the
So
fuck?
nice.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, sadly, what happens with these predatory shaman is that they will get a female sidekick, which disarms other females. So they're like, well, he must not be that bad. He's got this woman that trusts him. Like, she built a relationship with you where you trusted her. Very common.
That's exactly what Nino Teonacaro does. His wife, his partner, is someone who came from sexual abuse, sexual trauma, and then she fell in love with him during retreat, and now they're going around. I don't know what. I haven't heard from him since, but the moment I tried to expose him and his anger, his aggression towards being challenged, he just like cut me off. So I hope she's okay. I hope everyone who's in contact with him is okay, and that he's actually facilitating the mushroom experience from a legitimate tribe in Mexico. But that is very much a cycle.
Is that the guy that was up in Oregon?
Like. Yeah.
Yeah, he just went off like the map.
Really?
Yeah, oh, no. Yeah, he had contacted me as well, and then I started, like, I had talked to him, and so I had gotten messages like with people trying to like free his wife and stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Like, how does a sexual trauma survivor fall in love during ceremony with a shaman and that not be exploitative? It doesn't make sense.
No, totally. And that's, you know, with these women, I suspect, who are partnering with these shaman, that they've been sexually abused, and these guys, these predators know what they're looking for. You know, they know, they just are programmed with the formula of who to go after, how to get a woman to, you know, like on Geronimo's, his medicine sisters.
Men in general have always kind of seen ways to get sex as like a mathematical problem to solve. Like, give X, get Y. But when it comes to this, they know their targets, and they have all these tools that they use to get exactly what they want. And that's not how love works. That's not how healing works. Mm-hmm. And it's despicable.
It's chemical manipulation at its finest. And if you think about it, when they asked me at the hospital too, like a few days after when I came to, they were trying to see if I could recollect any memories of sexual trauma because they couldn't figure out the bruising. And they were waiting on the rape kit to come back. So they couldn't confirm anything. So they were hoping I could remember something. And I'll tell you, I personally I don't have a memory of an assault. I feel just in my body, it didn't happen. And here's why. Geronimo is not the type to have to come bust your door down and take what he wants. It's a game to him. He loves, like the first 2 times I sat with him.
Say this word in this way at this time when they're this high, and I'll get this.
Exactly. Like he was waiting for his opportune moment, and he'll wait. The other thing is that he doesn't have one target. He's not like a stalker obsessive. He has a harem of women. Like now that this happened to me and it caused me to go looking, because I'm going to be straight up with you guys. And as embarrassing as this is to admit, I want to admit this, and I want as many people to hear this as possible, because it's okay to admit you were ignorant, you were naive, and you were gullible. And that was me. I looked at his name. So like Courtney said, that's my first red flag. For me, that was like a purple flag. Like, this is safe. You know, I was like, look at his name. It didn't even make me question that, because I was ignorant, right? I'm like, look at his name. It's a Native American name. She's got some sort of connection. Didn't question it. Number 2, he's brown skinned. Okay. Right. Looked at him, the skin matched the name, and I'm like, cool beans, you know, let's do it. But the whole, like, and then you go on his Facebook page, and like you said, Courtney, like works at female empowerment. And then his actual banner picture, which it's still up today, because I checked before we got on the call to make sure that this was accurate information, is him and his Marine buddies all shirtless and with guns. And one guy's got a knife up to his neck. Like he's going to kill the other one. Totally.
Well, to appeal to the male and the females, you know.
It's just insane. But like, to me, I didn't do the digging that I should have beforehand. And I just want to say to anyone that's listening, dig, like become the investigator. You are putting your psyche, your life, you know what I mean? Your mental state, all this on the line when you are sitting with just somebody. Even when I'm talking to someone, I'm being vulnerable. But now let's add a mind altering, consciousness expanding substance. So you have like a spiritual narcissist, and now you have a spiritual narcissist with psychedelics. That to me is probably more dangerous than a man that walks around beating people's ass.
Yeah.
Like, because it is. And he'll wait. He's super patient, because I've heard from other girls, this ceremony went well, this hangout session went well, and then boom, goes in for the kill. And it's always this horror story. And these women feel, that's the other thing I wanted to touch on, because you said your friend wanted to. Well, if I'm on MDA, I want to too. Okay. Like, to be quite frank, I will probably have sex with anyone who's next to me, male or female, because that's how that medicine makes you feel. So they may feel like it's consent, but if I have to be on a chemical for me to have sex with you, that's not consent. And that's what these predators, that's how they get away with it, because there's so many women, because we feel like, well, we allowed it, we did it, it's consent. No, it's not. No, it isn't. Like, you may not have forced himself on you.
For all these people who are looking for, and for all these people who are looking for a shaman, beware of the feigned sense of credibility. If they have all these titles and these things that they like to say that are supposed to bring them credibility at the point where you're doubting, disregard all of it, because their words, their tone, their feeling, their inflection, and their compassion for you and what you're going through are the green lights. The red flags are when they say, oh, I'm from this place, I do this, or, you know, I've had this many good ceremonies, or, you know, beware of the feigned credibility, the call to credibility, because they'll use it as their story, and they'll repeat it over and over again as if it makes them better than they are. And you know, it's granted, they can come from a prestigious tribe. You can look into that. You can verify that they're from that tribe. But being able to see through when they're trying to dismiss your suspicion with just words and not action, not compassion, that's another red flag. Courtney, when you had said your story of when you met him, this brings me to another good point for anyone considering psychedelics in general. Start slow. start at the very minimal and see how it works with your body. Because even if, you know, you're cleared medically, you're cleared neurologically, maybe Wachuma is better for you than ayahuasca. So start slow, see what resonates with you. And in terms of any sort of relationship that you have with a person or a medicine, start slow. You know, maybe don't invite a stranger into your house unless they're with someone that's very esteemable. Have these sorts of boundaries and ways of making people work to get into your life, because a lot of times the narcissists already know that their targets won't do that. And they're looking for the people who have loose boundaries.
And that's very important too. You know, that you brought up about starting slow and starting safe. You know, with Bufo, there's insanely popular in Southern California, even more so than ayahuasca. There's people that will serve you, you know, up to 10 times in a day, and that can be very detrimental to you. You know, go to a practitioner who errs on the side of caution. You know, start slow. Maybe start with something like gentle, like wachuma or mushrooms, and work in, and know that that you're getting healing benefits out of psychedelics before you jump all into a mega dose of Bufo or to a 3-day, you know, ayahuasca retreat. We do have a lot of participants that have never done anything. They haven't smoked marijuana, they haven't experienced anything, but they have the support network. They're coming with family, and they're going into this experience. And we always start off the first night. That's the small amount. We separate the people who are first time drinkers with the ones that have drank before, and then versus the ones that have drank with us before, where we have seen how they react to the medicine. And we always start off small to see how that person reacts. By day 3, if you're not connecting, we're giving you fruit, you get the spoon, like, you know, we'll work with you, but we always start off slow. We're always looking for who are the people who may not be able to handle it, who may have an adverse reaction. We ask people about alcoholism and bulimia, but people can have esophageal tears or ulcers and throw up blood. So we want to make sure there's no blood in your bucket. And we start off slow. So if you're going to a practitioner who's just like, it's balls to the wall, we're going all in. No, that's not safe or smart. Like, go with someone who will ease you into the process, especially if you've never done anything before. So if you're going to someone that does Bufo, go to someone that starts you on a smaller dosage and is willing to work with you to get you up to a higher dosage, or someone that will start a mushroom ceremony off with 2 grams, not just throwing 7 grams at you and melting your mind. Okay. You know, or offers, like, we serve multiple cups of ayahuasca throughout our ceremonies. And it's your choice to decide, do you want to take the 2nd cup? Do you want a 3rd cup? As long as we clear it, like you're coherent and you're not putting yourself in any danger, then we'll absolutely serve you. But a lot of these balls to the walls experience, just knocking people out, giving them this intense psychedelia, is because the person doesn't really have the abilities to help control they're not an energy worker. They're just somebody with some drugs who's trying to give you an experience that you will fully accredit to them, instead of the medicine, that you will be like, oh my God, they're so powerful, they did this. Well, no, they give you a shit ton of drugs. And then somebody who's not interested in integration or follow-up, if you go to a ceremony and that's it, you don't hear shit from them afterwards. Like, how could you do that to somebody? You know, like, you should be following up. You should at minimum have an integration call. You should be giving a shit about the people that are going through this very intense experience. And that's a red flag. We have tons of musicians out here that do ayahuasca ceremonies. Okay, great. You're a musician. You play beautiful music during ceremony. People have great experiences. But then when people are struggling afterwards, you're not picking up the phone for them. You're not talking to them. You're not doing anything to support. You're not offering integration. So, you know, definitely look for those things and be cautious. Like, be cautious.
Being patient too is like just what we were saying earlier. set and setting, just like, you know, what we've heard so much about in the psychedelic community ever since it started in the 60s. But add a third one of compassion, and maybe a fourth of patience, because these are the things that you need from everyone around you. Because if they don't have those first, it's not conducive of a good experience when you're even more vulnerable and even more.
And there are people that have unresolved, like that. The thing that has scared me so much in ceremonies is when you have facilitators and you have shamans with unresolved anger issues, it's going to come out. And it's the same thing with people that have unresolved anger issues that work with children or the elderly or people in hospitals. They're going to abuse them because you have someone that is so vulnerable on these medicines, and people don't act in their right mind. And if you don't have the compassion or the patience to help them to use the restroom, not berate them like, oh, you shit on yourself, or you can't walk, or you can't do that. I've seen that happen in ceremonies where there's no compassion. Like, all of us that work together, like, we know people go back into this childlike state. They're helpless. We want them to feel cared for and looked after and not ashamed of anything that happens in ceremony. If you get butt naked, you miss the bathroom. But if somebody has these unresolved anger issues, there's the potential to berate you, to yell at you, to humiliate you. And that can really
what these
fuck
other
you
stories
up.
from ladies who've been affected by Geronimo say, that when they were vulnerable around him and his friends, or even during the ceremony, they were berated and belittled for having a hard time during their experience. And that is something that is completely unacceptable from a shaman.
Or when you ask afterwards, you know, what happened, there's no integration. I never got a phone call, a text, anything, hey, how you doing? This was the first two ceremonies, not including the one where he killed my friend and almost killed me. Like, I still haven't gotten an I'm sorry, nothing. And like, truth be told, these were my friends, guys. Okay, this wasn't like some facilitator I just reached out to. These were people I had a relationship with. So if I served you medicine and you're my friend and something horribly went wrong, okay, like an accident even, and I had no idea, I don't care what the police said that we can't talk, it's an open investigation. You're my friend. I want to make sure you're okay. And like, I just find it really weird that they care, them too. All of a sudden they really care about what the police say and let's abide by the law, but you're traveling the country with Schedule I substances that are illegal federally everywhere. But we don't care about that. But when it comes to, you just killed someone and now someone might need your help, they don't get a phone call and I'm sorry, a card, like nothing. I was absolutely floored by that. And then he's continued to do ceremonies afterwards. People have come to me, I have proof. And two of these ladies went on YouTube to glorify him some more, which made me want to throw up. I was actually tempted to comment on their page, but I don't want them to take it down because we may need it for the investigation. So I haven't said anything. And then another girl told me that she just did ceremony with him too. And I told her personally, I said, yeah, well, he just killed my friend. So you probably don't want to sit with him again. I do have to go though, guys. I got to go get my kids from school. But I just wanted to thank you so much for having me on here. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Valerie. Have a great day.
Bye. Bye, guys.
And you know, I think one more thing that we can focus on with this conversation is just that, you know, as the government, the DEA, the police, they don't understand this community. They don't understand the healing. You know, Western civilization has never really understand alternative healing methods. And so it's up to us to regulate this community until they catch up, until they get up to speed about what's required to make this place safe and to facilitate the healing in the most effective way. And so, you know, we know the signs now. We know what to look out for. And we know especially not to go to this guy, Geronimo Redfeather. But I think it's important to close with, what are the best things that a shaman or a plant medicine facilitator can add to your experience with?
Mhm. Yeah, I think when you have someone who, versus doing it alone or with a group of friends, and having someone who's highly skilled and experienced, it can make the world a difference. Having somebody who is a qualified shaman, and experienced, they can control the energies. They can create that really safe container for you to experience this and have that optimal environment for you to do your own healing, because it is you doing the healing. They're not healing you. They're creating that space for you to do this very hard and very intense work on yourself to make changes. So when you have someone who is qualified, it takes it from this less chaotic space to this really amazing environment for you to heal in. And they also can keep you safe. They can keep you from running down the road naked, from physically
Especially in
injuring
the
yourself.
indigenous sense, coming from the indigenous background for a lot of these shamans, it comes from generational knowledge of what can and will go wrong and the ways that they can mitigate it and provide peace, as well as grounding tools for your experience to continue going the way you wanted it to go when you set out to have this experience in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. Like with Taito Pedro, I mean, I'm always impressed when someone's, really going through it, and he never touches. He'll go up to people and he'll, sing an Icaro or play harmonica, and you see the person just release. Like he can work with the energy to do that, to release. Where if you have somebody who doesn't give a shit or isn't qualified and you're totally on your own, like we're not going to walk you through the experience or take it away from you or stop the medicine. Like you're going to go through it, but there's things that can be done, slight manipulations with energy to create a more pleasant and comfortable experience for you. Especially with the indigenous, he has a whole tackle box that he brings full of plants, not ketamine, not date rape drugs, like plants and stones, and oils that have been used for thousands of years by his tribe to help you. Even something as much as when people are having extreme stomach pain, giving them peppermint oil to smell, and stuff like that. They can, very simple tools and natural tools that can help guide you through your experience or get you over a very rough patch. Or, if someone's dying and then, he can, I'm dying. No, this is what's going on with them. Put them in this position, put them on the grass, and then they're better. And so we're able to do these larger ceremonies because we have somebody that has come from a lineage that goes back as far as, they have record of, and has 30 years of experience doing these ceremonies and knows a lot of tools and tips to help get people through the experience. So, it's definitely, I would recommend for people not to do these on their own for the first time, because you don't know what you can do. I mean, I know somebody that's lost their job because they picked up their phone on mushrooms and like told everyone to go fuck themselves. Like, you really need to be supervised, as you're going through these experiences and building these relationships, but you need to be supervised by people that care for you and have your best interests, not their own, so that you really can get the full experience. Like there's so many people that are afraid of psychedelics because they did them with their buddies in a shitty setting, as a kid, or at a party, or just where it wasn't the right place to do these. But these are amazing tools that can help heal you and help work through a lot of things that Western medicine is just not successful at. But you got to do it in the right setting, and you got to do it with somebody that's going to look after you so that you can go into your own experience and keep you safe. That's the number one thing. And then help you with it afterwards. Like all this stuff happens during ceremony, and then you have to go back into your real life. So how do you take all of this stuff that happened, and some of it's going to be grandiose shit. We've all had the experience where we're here to save the world, because we all are in a way, or we're the one, or God's talked to us and we're super extra special. Like, how do you ground that down and turn that into something that benefits your life. Like, how do you pick up the phone and call your mom? How do you get a job? How do you start living your purpose? Oh, okay, cool. You saw an alien. Okay, you think you're from outer space. None of that really matters. What matters
You still
is
have to fold the laundry on your chair.
exactly, how do you put your laundry? Are you paying your bills? Is your laundry put away? Are you bathing? Like, so how do you turn that into positive life change? Because you're here on earth now, and that's what matters. And this grandiose, beautiful, or even scary things that happen in ceremony, turning that into real life change. And that's what having someone who gives a shit about you and is qualified, guides
And
you.
calls you for integration.
Yeah, totally cares about what you're doing afterwards. Not, oh, you're all messed up. Oh, you're all jacked up. Hey, come do some more medicine. We got a ceremony next weekend. That's a huge red flag. You know,
Yeah.
when I talk to participants, and a lot of times they're eager to come again and again and again, because they feel that sense of community. You're having this big adult sleepover. You're bonding with people in ways that you don't. So you're chasing that experience, or you're just avoiding doing the work and not making any life change. And you're just bypassing with going and doing this medicine work. Nothing's going to happen. You're not going to get that change. So having
It just
good
becomes a different form of coping.
So it's just do your research, talk to your friends, you know, and listen to yourself. You know, we all look back, like, you know, as Valerie mentioned, you know, and I mentioned my thing, you know, with Geronimo, there were red flags. He had sex with my friend. He on DMT started saying he was a master of the universe. There were other things in conversations that came up where he was talking about buying land in Texas to start a cult, and he used the word cult. And I'm like, oh, he's just joking. I'm like, I don't think so now. So listen to your red flags and listen to your intuition. Trust yourself. Be your own advocate. You know, if you trust yourself, trust that gut instinct, and don't let somebody gaslight you into doing something that you don't feel comfortable with.
Definitely. And, you know, we've exposed a lot of ways that people can avoid coming into contact with a shaman like Geronimo Redfeather and others coming from various backgrounds and false claims to credibility. But yeah, you know, be patient out there, everyone. The healing will find you when the time is right. So don't rush into it. You don't want to get hurt. But when the moment is right, this medicine can change your life, and be ready for it. And with that, I hope you all have a safe trip.
Thank you, Tristan.
Thank you, Courtney. Take care.
You too.